The air in that private dining room was thick with the scent of expensive steaks and condescension. My family had always used get-togethers to celebrate my brother's achievements while turning my life into the punchline of a cruel joke. Tonight was supposed to be his big moment, celebrating his engagement to a woman from a prominent family. Instead, my father raised his glass, laughing loudly about my string of failed projects and wasted years. My brother smirked, and my mother gave a sympathetic nod that felt like a slap. I kept my eyes on my plate, refusing to offer a defense. Suddenly, his fiancée leaned across the white tablecloth, her eyes locked onto mine, and asked a question that made the entire room instantly freeze. Before we get to what she discovered, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, and let me know in the comments where you are watching from. My name is Julian Vance, and in my household, you only existed if your name was attached to a prestigious corporate title. My father and brother were corporate raiders, the kind of men who measured human worth entirely by profit margins and public recognition. I was the anomaly, the quiet son who did not fit into their loud, aggressive world of high-stakes networking. Because I chose a different path, I was treated like an unfortunate shadow at family functions. This dinner was held at an exclusive downtown club, a place built out of dark mahogany and low lighting, specifically designed to make wealthy people feel even more important. I was seated near the end of the long table, just far enough away to be excluded from the main conversation but close enough to hear the jabs. My brother, Preston, looked radiant, practically radiating the smug confidence of a man who believed he had already won at life. My parents looked at him with an expression of pure, unadulterated pride, a look they had never once directed toward me. When a relative casually asked how my work was going, my mother quickly intervened before I could even open my mouth. "Julian is still searching for his purpose," she said with a forced, sweet smile, as if she were apologizing for a broken piece of furniture. My father chuckled, adding that some people simply were not built for the real pressures of the business world. Instead of arguing, I focused on the amber liquid in my glass and the quiet hum of the restaurant around us. I had learned a long time ago that trying to correct their narrative was completely pointless because they only heard what they wanted to hear. Preston's fiancée, a sharp corporate attorney named Clara, sat directly across from me, quietly observing the entire dynamic. She did not join in on the laughter, nor did she nod along with my mother's patronizing remarks. Instead, her eyes moved between my father's booming performance and my complete silence, analyzing the room like a seasoned investigator. When my father made another cracking joke about my lack of ambition, I simply took a sip of water, completely detached from their childish games. What none of them realized was that my silence was not a sign of submission, but a calculated strategy. For the past 3 years, my life had operated on a completely different clock than theirs, filled with endless late-night calls and grueling international negotiations. My apartment was a war room of monitors, filled with signed digital contracts and cross-border logistics data that my family could not even begin to comprehend. I had intentionally kept them completely in the dark about my venture because I knew their involvement would only bring toxic energy. They genuinely believed my simple clothes and modest apartment meant I was drowning in failure. In reality, I was quietly bootstrapping a global enterprise that was about to disrupt the boundary even further by offering me a job as an entry-level assistant at his firm. He claimed he wanted to help me finally get on my feet, so I wouldn't have to struggle anymore, earning an appreciative sigh from my mother. Clara suddenly set her fork down, her intense gaze fixing entirely on me as the family conversation drifted into silence. She asked me directly what the specific focus of my independent consulting work was, ignoring Preston's attempt to laugh it off as a hobby. When I calmly responded that I specialized in international supply chain automation, the temperature at the table dropped instantly. Clara's expression shifted from polite curiosity to absolute realization as she processed my last name. "Wait, you are Julian Vance," she murmured, her voice carrying a weight that made my father immediately stop talking mid-sentence. She reached into her leather bag, pulled out her tablet, and rapidly scrolled through a major global financial publication before turning the screen toward the center of the table. The front page featured a massive article detailing a highly secretive, multi-million-dollar tech platform that had just revolutionized global shipping infrastructure. The article praised an enigmatic founder who had purposefully avoided the tech press to focus entirely on scaling the business. Clara looked at her fiancé, her voice completely calm but cutting, stating that her firm had spent 6 months desperately trying to book a single meeting with this exact company. My mother's hand dropped from my shoulder as if she had touched an open flame, her face turning pale. Preston stared at the digital screen, his mouth open in utter disbelief as he read the financial figures associated with my name. My father demanded to know why I had never brought this up during Sunday dinners, his booming authority suddenly sounding weak and desperate. I took a slow, deliberate sip of my drink, looked him dead in the eye, and told him that he had never bothered to ask. Preston stood up so fast his heavy chair scraped loudly against the hardwood floor, shouting that this had to be some kind of elaborate mistake. Clara simply looked at him with profound disappointment, realizing the man she was marrying was entirely blind to actual talent. The illusion of their superiority shattered completely right there under the dim restaurant lights, leaving an incredibly heavy silence at the table. I stood up, casually smoothed down my jacket, and placed my linen napkin neatly beside my plate without a single trace of anger. I looked at Clara, thanked her for the wonderful conversation, and wished her the absolute best of luck with her career. I walked out of that private room without looking back at my parents or my brother, leaving them to sit in the ruins of their own arrogance. The cool night air hit my face as I stepped onto the city sidewalk, and for the first time in my life, the quiet felt like total victory. In the weeks that followed that dinner, the dynamic changed forever, but not in the way most people would expect. My mother tried calling several times with a shaky voice, attempting to invite me to upscale dinners, but I kept our conversations brief and professional. I did not need their newfound respect because it was based entirely on my net worth, not on who I actually was. Preston and my father never apologized, choosing instead to rewrite the story to their friends to protect whatever vanity they had left. Losing their approval did not break me, it actually freed me from a cage I had been volunteering to live in for decades. True validation never comes from earning a seat at a table where you had to bleed just to be noticed.